Today, friends, we are going to be working on a fun project. But before we get to the fun part, we have to do the unfun part, and that is build a computer to act as the basis for this project. This is what I'm going to use as my starting point. Another one of these cases. I have so many of these things. This is a slightly older one because it's only got the 2 front panel USB and it has a knockout for a FireWire if it were so equipped. I have never seen one of these equipped with that. I guess it was a CTO option, I don't know. I've already pulled the rear fan out. Stupid bracket. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out all of this. There are some questionable decisions that I'm going to make here. And they're questionable in a vacuum, but trust me, I do have a reason for doing things the way that I'm going to do it. I'm taking out this power supply, and I'm going to replace it with this Corsair CX500 that I paid $1 for at the Kingston? I think it was the Kingston Hamfest. This has no 80 plus ratings, whereas this one does. But number one, this has more SATA ports, which would be more useful in a case that's not constrained to basically one drive anyway. As opposed to this, which I think has 4, or 3, maybe? No, I think it's got 5. But I'm going to use this in here, partially because I'm curious if it works, but because I actually could use this in another project, and I will be using it in another project. And I got to pull it out anyway, so we'll get that. I'm not going to use this motherboard, even though I could use this motherboard for this project. But I want something a little bit better. So I have, sitting right here, yes, it's got no RAM right now, one of these Q270M boards, which also has got 2 onboard COM ports. I have RAM sitting in that pile of junk over there. And so that's going to go in here, along with this power supply. And I need a slot cover. But I also need this. 2 serial ports. 125 and 19 pin connection. I mean, you'll know from the title of the video why I need this, but we'll get into that here in a bit. But I got to start tearing this thing apart. Okay, taking it out. And we now have a blank slate to work with. I also put the new I/O shield in. I did forget that I'm going to need 2 more screws in order to install this board correctly, but I'm going to find 2 screws. They're not going to match what's in here, which is annoying because I know that I don't have enough screws to be able to match. So, whatever. I guess we'll just put 2 mismatching screws in here and live with it. No one's going to see it anyway, other than on this video. And me. There we go. Look at that. Installed with RAM. Everything is plugged in, including the 2 serial ports. Right there. This is COM 1 and this is COM 2, which is probably backwards. But I want to primarily use this because this is the one that I have the cable for at this particular juncture in time. Now it's time to junk up this case with a power supply. As far as a drive is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and throw this into it. This is a Micron M600, 256 gigabyte SATA SSD. I haven't used the Micron drives, at least not too many of them. So we'll see how good this one happens to be. Well, there we are. We've built a computer with top-notch cable management and everything else. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to hook this thing up and see if it actually even does anything. And we'll install an operating system on it as well at the same time. Alright, our machine is here, not on the workbench because yes, it's a disaster. I do need to do something about it. Get a chance to see how our newly created monster does in terms of power usage. But, of course, we gotta hope that it doesn't explode first. So, here we go. Ooh. Oh, well, there we go. Maybe. Here's the beep that we want to hear. That was odd. Please enter setup to recover BIOS settings. Why? Is the battery dead? On a machine this new? Okay. Easy flash. Q270. We're going to update the BIOS. Okay. Here's what we've got for power usage. At least so far. It was a little bit higher when I had it writing the BIOS. It's probably closer to 50, but I'm going to go ahead and set all of this. It's not really much to see. It's just setting it for auto power on and things like that. But we'll take care of that. Okay, so, a couple of things. Should be ready. I just had it sitting at that screen for a little bit. So what we're going to do is we got a UEFI on the SanDisk. Let's go ahead and try and boot that. Which I think it didn't do because it sucks. Okay, there we go. Don't know what that was all about. We want to try our install server. This is Ubuntu server. So do that. Okay, now we're ready for the install process to begin. I'm going to select English because, of course, I don't need to update the installer because I don't care. Please select your keyboard. It should be good. I want Ubuntu server. Now, do I use the minimized version of Ubuntu server? I'm going to say no. So we have our address, which is good, because I actually want that MAC address that's on there. But we do have DHCP as well, so I know that it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and take that MAC address and update my DHCP. Okay, we've got our IP address figured out. So we're done. I don't need a proxy. It's going to test a mirror. Good for it. Wish it wouldn't do that. It takes so long. Alright, use an entire disk. Do I want to set it up with LVM? It's a good question. I've never really had much luck with LVM. So I'm going to go ahead and just say no. We'll see what it has done here. So we have an EFI partition and we have the regular partition. I'm fine with that. So we will continue. Now I'll enter in these details. Ubuntu Pro. Nope. I don't need. Do I want SSH? Actually, that's probably a good idea. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn that on. I don't need keys because I don't have those right now. I'll set that up later. I don't really need any snaps. And there we go. So now it's installing. And I'm not sure how long that'll take. It's 10:09 right now. And we'll see how long it takes to do this. Okay, so we'll call out about 15 minutes. I wasn't paying too much attention because I was trying to route a network cable, but I think we're good. So we'll restart the machine. pull that out. And it should just boot. We're using about 33 watts from the wall, 36, 38. Now it jumped up to about 60, but then dropped to 20. So it's all over the map. But we'll let that work. Seems to be functioning, so that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and, now that I've routed a network cable, go ahead and actually install it. Hopefully it will actually work, in the sense that when I unplug it, the battery's not going to be dead. Okay, I believe I have that KVM set right. I have everything connected. Let's see what happens when I turn the power on. Yep, that battery is toast. So I guess I'm putting a new battery in it before I do anything else. Okay, take 2 with a new battery. Let's see if it works now. So far, much better. Alright. I did install Cronny and set up the sources to my local NTP as opposed to what it was using before. That's it. That's the computer part of the setup. Almost done. We have the machine here. Now we just got to get the rest of the hardware going. So, let's move on from the computer, at least the hardware side of the computer for now, because that's pretty much all set up. With some caveats, I'll get into that later. How about the other hardware that we're going to need for this? Because if you haven't figured out already from the video title, we are basically building our own dial-up ISP. Or what I'm trying to do is build a modem to Ethernet bridge, so I could use some of my systems that are modem only on the network. So there's a couple different ways we could go about this, because obviously we need something for the modems to plug into. Something telephone. You need a PSTN to plug the telephones into. And there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could use the real PSTN, public switch telephone network, which I guess if you're paying for telephone you could do, but why do that? Why pay for telephone if you don't need to? And why go through all this trouble when things like the National Capital Freenet exist if you have a connection to the outside world via telephone? So you don't even need to go through any of this process for that. You could have a PBX. You could build your own PBX. I guess if you're made of money, that's the route to go. But the route that I am going to go is I'm going to build my own PSTN using one of these, well, actually 2 of these, analog telephone adapters. This is a Cisco Linksys, model number SPA 2102. I don't know what the -R means, but I'm sure it means something. Supposedly, the units that I have are unlocked. You need unlocked units for this to actually work. And again, just to prove a point, there are 2 of them. I wouldn't stack them like that. Apparently, they run very hot. So I'm hoping that these are actually unlocked. But we need a way to default them. The good news is that on these Cisco Linksys, at least the unlocked ones, SPA 2102s, this is relatively easy. If you've got a telephone hooked up to the first phone line on the back, and you turn it on, and you grab your phone, you see there, and at least for a second there, I have a light on it now. I don't have a dial tone, but if you dial 4 stars, fortunately, I'm not really sure if you're going to be able to hear this. We'll just go ahead and we'll end that. And we'll try again. This is a wireless phone, by the way. It's a 900 megahertz wireless phone. This is an old thing. I think we've had this for almost 30 years. No, that's not quite true, because I'm not 30 yet. At least 20 years, certainly, probably closer to 25. It's had one battery replacement in its life. That's annoying. I hit the ringer button by mistake. Yeah. You can see it takes a 3 AA holder. I wonder if that's leaked at some point. Well, it doesn't matter for the sake of making this video. But we'll try this. So you dial 4 stars. In essence, it'll talk to you, so I'm going to just talk you through this. So we'll do 4 stars. So then we want to dial 73738 #. Okay, so as it turns out, I was able to get that to try anyway. So you dial 73738 # and then 1 £, and then you hang up. Which I forgot to do. So I've now hung up. And hopefully I don't have to do that again. My keypad, or the keypad on this phone, is wearing out. So, I mean, it used to be used all the time. So maybe I will just try it again. Now I'm hearing nothing. Now we'll reboot it. That's what we'll do. This is working well, as you can probably tell. This is the first one I'm doing, so anyway. So we'll do that, we'll wait for it to boot, which it's done. We'll try this again. Okay, so we'll enter our option. Press 1 to dial, and then hang up. And then it's done. So again, I'm going to reboot it. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to get an Ethernet connection, if I can find it. Right here. I have an Ethernet cable, which isn't really long enough. Do this. We'll plug it into the internet port on the back, which is the blue port. And then we'll plug this in again. Still with the phone connected to the jack there. You can see it's not complaining anymore, and we have an internet connection. I will have to put that on my network properly, but we're going to go to the configuration menu again. We will do 7932 £. Nope, it didn't work because the keypad is messed up. Try again. Alright, as if this couldn't go any better, my idiot camera ran out of batteries halfway through that configuration step. So, we did 7932 £, then we did 1 £, and then we did 1, and hung up. And what that has done is that has enabled the web interface on the internet side of this. So I should now be able to access this, whatever its IP address happens to be, which we can figure out by, again, going to the configuration menu, dialing 110 £. So we'll do that again. No idea if you can hear that, but I now know what the IP address is. So again, I should now be able to access my analog telephone adapter over my network. Alright, so we've gone to our IP address and we've got this up right now. Okay. So what I need to do is dismiss this useless dialog box. I need to go to admin login, which we've already got. I need to go to advanced. I don't need to click the WAN setup. I'll do that later if I need to, because I am going to give this thing a different IP address, but I'm going to configure that later. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to click the voice tab, which is right up there. I'm going to click on line 1. Line enable should be set to yes, of course. So I need to find the network jitter level, which should be set to extremely high, as high as it'll go, because this is VoIP, and dial-up over VoIP kind of sucks, so we're trying to make this as good as possible. Jitter buffer adjustment should be set to nothing, disabled. The proxy, which is, where is that? It's down here. Proxy needs to be the IP address of your, or the server that we just built, so I'm going to have to get that information. So we'll set that to that IP address. It's not the outbound proxy, it is the proxy. That's what this says. Set proxy to that, set the user ID, which is way down here, to the username. That we will have on our server, which I'll get into later. The password will be whatever the password is. Obviously the most secure passwords ever. Now, call waiting server, no. Three-way call server, where is that at? No. Preferred codec. Where are you? Preferred codec. Oh, it's way down here. G711U, which is the default. Good. Preferred codec only. Yes. Silence suppression enable. No. That's good. Silence threshold will set to high, even though we've disabled it. But okay, that's what the instructions say. That's what I'm going to do. Echo cancel enable. Set to no. Echo cancel adapt enable, set to no. Echo suppression enable, set to no. Fax CED detect enable, no. Fax CNG, no. Fax process NSE, where are you? Fax process NSE, no. Fax enable T38, no. And then we can click on submit all changes. Alright, so we've done that, and we've configured the first line. So, line 1 is now configured. I believe it has changed everything where it needs to go. It actually saved all of that. I hope it did. Yep, it looks like it did. Okay, good. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing for line 2. Again, I'm going to configure line 2 basically exactly the same. The only difference is it's going to the user. And I suppose by extension the password, but they're going to have the same password. Again, nothing but the best security around here. But this user ID is going to be different. Okay, we're back at the computer, and what I have just done is made a list of all of the serial devices on this and which driver they're using. And what I'm doing, or why I'm doing that, is because I want to know what serial ports, or where the two serial ports are on the system. And I can guess, based on deductive reasoning, that they are the two ports that are pointed at /bus/PNP/drivers/serial, and not any of these other random ones. I suppose it could be that one that's PCI, but there's only one of them. So I'm going to make the assumption it's not that one. I'm going to assume that both serial ports are working, and it's not that one. So TTY-S0 and TTY-S1. Remember that because we'll need them later. So what I'm going to do now, and probably get in the way of the camera while I'm doing it, clear that, just so that maybe it's still can't really see it. But I'm going to install the Asterisk PBX software. So that will install this. It'll ask us if we want to install all this crap. We do. Alright, so it's going to install, and then we've got some configuration that we will need to do. This is actually going to be easier to do over SSH, because I'm going to be typing out a lot of stuff, and I'm lazy, so well, here's how we're going to do it. Alright, so this is our SIP configuration file. Please read security, blah blah blah. Alright, so way at the end of this file, might be faster to do it this way. I'm going to add in all of my stuff. So, append it to the end. Here's our configuration. We're going to grab this one, and we'll copy it in. And the reason why we're going to copy it in is that's a lot of typing. So we're using the default context because, I mean, it says it right there, but I'll say if we're using the default context, and you don't need anything complex. Allow calls to be placed and received. That's what this type equals friend is for. Again, keeping things simple. Our secret is our password, which we're using a very secure password for. We're going to qualify that the peer is no longer than 200 milliseconds away. I don't know what that means. I'm going to leave it. The device will register with the server, asterisk server, which is PBX. So in essence, I guess we are making a PBX. It's just a cheap one. So host equals dynamic, direct media, send it directly to reduce latency, and no network address translation. So we're going to do the same thing for all the others. I'm going to have 4 of them. I believe that they are all the same, looking at this documentation. Yes, they're all the same. So these correspond with our 2 server-side modems, that's modem 1 and modem 2, and then our clients, client 1 and client 2. Alright, that's done. Now, the next step is going to be to edit the extensions. We're going to go and find, I probably could have just used a find. Find this, we'll get rid of that. We don't need to include demo because we don't want the demo. We don't need the demo. Underneath that, we're going to add in the following. And I am just going to copy and paste this and do some editing quickly on it. But these, in essence, are extensions. So I don't need all of them. I only have 2. So the way that this is going to work, oops, I want to delete it at the right place, right? Yeah. I have 2 ISP side modems. So the extension 881, if someone dials 881, would be to go to the first modem. If I want to dial if I dial 882, it goes to the second. If I dial anything else, literally anything else, it goes to both, or all of them. There used to be a whole bunch of them there. That should be it. So I'm going to exit, save it. I'm going to restart the service. My battery on my camera is running down again, but what we should have now is a configuration. And I'm going to open this. We're connected to it now. Okay. Alright, give me a minute. It looks like they're offline. I'm going to have to figure that out. Okay, so I just power cycled the ATAs. You can see there's a bunch of output on the console, and I don't think that output... No, it did not come on the other console, so it's just output here because I've opened it up, I'm looking at it in verbose mode. So now if I do the same thing, SIP show peers, both of them are there, status is okay, the host is fine, good enough, so we're good to go. Everything is there. Okay, I'm going to blindly assume that this is going to work. So we're going to take our telephone, which I've now plugged in to the client side. I've actually plugged it into client 2. And we're going to try dialing one of the modems. We'll do the first one first. It is ringing, which is good. Then we'll hang up here. So it'll disappear. It never did pick up. Which is interesting. So let's try the other one. Oh, talk. So it's ringing. It's still ringing. Although I did notice that a light went out on the modem over there, which I'll show in a second. Okay, let's turn that off, and that'll disappear. The light did not go off on the modem. Alright, so we might still have a little bit of a problem here, but we have the voice network. And that might be all that we can do right now anyway, because I have it configured anyway for those modems to pick up a connector or anything like that. So it is dialing, and we are getting reaction out of this, which means that the ATA is configured correctly. So, cool. We now have a voice network. So that is step 1 done. Here is the next part of this, and this is the part that ties it all together. I'm going to install, well, actually I'm going to update the package lists first, and then I'm going to install PPP and mgetty, if it doesn't have mgetty already, which it looks like it does not. Alright, so those are now installed. What I need to do is I will need to create a systemd service. I hate systemd with a burning passion, but I will need to do this because this is how this works. So I'm just going to do what this says to do. I'm going to take all of this. Alright, so we're editing what's called mgetty at. Why the at? Well, because we have multiple interfaces. I want to have both the interfaces. So we're going to just copy all of that in. And we're going to do that. Now, I have 2 serial ports, S1, and I believe the other one is pointed at S0, yes. So S1 and S0. So I now need to make a configuration file for this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the old config file, and I'm going to take everything and delete it and put all of this new stuff in. But I'm not going to save it yet. And the reason why I'm not going to save it is because my configuration differs from the configuration in here. So I've only got 2 of these, so I'm going to get rid of those. So we have TTYS0 and TTYS1. And the rest of that can be configured that way. It should be fine. I'm going to save it. And now we are going to enable and start mGetty. So we'll enable it for S0 and S1, and then we're going to start it for S0 and S1. Notice how I don't have any error messages. And I can in fact check the status of one of these. You can see it's active. The other thing we can also see is if I zoom out, go over to the rack, and zoom all the way in, at least on that modem, we have had a reaction. Now the other one we haven't, which I'm a little concerned by. I have a feeling that the cable that I'm using with that's a no modem cable and not a serial cable. There is a difference. The transmit and receive lines are crossed. So if you try using a no modem cable as a normal serial cable, you can't transmit or receive because they're going to the wrong pins. So like I said, I'm a little concerned about that, but I'll adjust that as I see fit here. And I guess even in the meantime, I can dial the working one directly anyway, so it's not a big deal. But that's only half of the battle. In fact, it's only about a third of the battle. Time to configure PPP. Is right here. Here are the things that we need. Obviously, we need a DNS server. So I'm going to go ahead and make a DNS server. I'm going to use the local one. We'll try that first. If it doesn't work, I can use something else. I don't need a Win server. Async map should be 0, which it is. I require authentication, yes. Hardware flow control, yep. Software flow control, no. Don't need escape characters. Don't use modem control lines, which is fine. We'll leave that alone. Lock on the serial device, good. At least for testing purposes, I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. We'll show the password, just for debugging purposes again. This thing called modem is not on my list of commands, so I'm going to go ahead and comment it out. I don't need to worry about the MRU, don't worry about the net mask, no IP default, don't worry about that. Don't worry about all of that. So I want PAP. I'm going to go ahead and enable debug mode. Again, this is just temporary. Going through this file, there's a lot of things in this file. A lot of which I don't need. Cache client MAC address. I just happened to see that in the ARP system table. Proxy ARP. We'll enable that because that's on my list. So the next thing I'm looking for, no IPX. It's already there. The other thing I want to look for is the LCP echo. Echo interval 30, echo failure 4. Dropped is not in there. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Alright, well, I think we're good. So I'm going to hit X on that, and we'll save it. So now for each of my devices, I need to create an options file. So we're going to go back to this. I think, what's the name of the file? Is this. We'll paste that in. I'm going to use fairly small. What really is going to go on here is, if we take a look at this is how this is going to get the IP address. Focus. Okay. What are we doing here, camcorder? This is how it's going to get the IP address. I'm going to use, and again, I'm just going to use what it says here, small subnets. There's only going to be 2 devices on this thing anyway at any time, so I can use a small /30 subnet with just a couple of addresses, and it'll be fine. All of that is fine. I'm going to save it. And we'll do the same thing for another. Do the same thing for another one. Just copy it in from the guide that I'm using. Should be okay. Next step, I'm going to add a user called dial. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to all of these groups that are right here, these different groups. I'm going to set the shell to PPP, and the user is going to be called dial. I'm now going to set a password for that user. Nothing but the most secure passwords ever. Now I need to edit the PAP secrets file. And add it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our user. In place. Again, nothing but the finest passwords around here. And that's the user configuration. Now I need to configure the firewall. Okay, so the last step is to configure your firewall to allow masquerading. On Ubuntu, UFW is used. And unfortunately, the guide that I'm using has a helpful link to the server guide, which Canonical has completely and utterly destroyed. So it points to something useless now. In essence, what you need to do is actually quite simple. Number 1, you need to enable SSH through the firewall before you touch anything. You can see I've allowed it. Right there, UFW allow SSH. Then what you need to do is you need to edit the rules.before file and add in this network address translation table, which is pretty much the same thing as what you do with IP tables, which is basically what UFW is. The difference is a little bit weird here. But this should now work. So in theory, when I go ahead and pick up the phone, and I'm going to try and dial one of them picked up. You can hear that there. I believe it just kicked me out, which makes sense. I heard a click over there on the other line too. So let's try dialing a modem directly. So we'll hang up. And we'll hit it again. Oh, busy. I wonder why it's saying it's busy. Everyone is busy. Well, one of them is definitely answering. Well, I have a busy tone now. So we are getting somewhere. It's maybe not totally working, and again, that might just be because, well, guess what? This is a telephone. Of course it's not going to work. Let's get an actual computer up here. Alright, so this is the all-important last step. Testing it with an actual computer, making sure that it works. This has taken a little bit because, as it turns out, it didn't work to start with. And it did not work to start with because I actually had to go to the modem, and I'll go over this here in a second. I had to change the settings on the modems in order to get them to work. We're still out of the woods yet because my 56K external US robotics modem is still not working. I think that there's a problem with the cable. I'll have to look into that. But the 33.6 one is. So here's what I've done. I've created on this computer a new dial-up network connection. Come over and we'll zoom in on that. This is dialing out on the internal modem. I wanted to use the monorail, like an actual vintage computer. Unfortunately, the monorail has got other problems, as it turns out, with its modem. So that'll have to be figured out at some point external to this. I have it set to dial the pool, so whatever picks up is going to pick up. I know it's going to be modem number 2 because modem number 1's not working. Alright, so I've configured the point-to-point protocol, PPP, which brings it up, and we're going to go ahead and dial out. It's a little quiet on the computer. Here we go. Verifying password. Registering. This is the part that I wasn't getting to, and we are now connected. Look at that. Whoa, camera. And it's not focusing on it, but it says 31.2 kilobits per second. Wowee, high speed, baby. And it does work too. Like, I can come in here to a web browser, and we'll just go ahead and open a web browser. And let's just go to a website. Let's just search it. Why not? See what happens. This connection is... Oh, because the time is wrong. Right. Alright, well, HTTPS is out of the question. That's the computer's problem. I'm not going to fix that on this video, so... But it is working. I probably can. Well, I'm not going to be able to go to YouTube for the same reason. And I'm probably not going to be able to access my site for a couple of different reasons. We'll see what happens. I don't think it'll find it, and the reason why I don't think it'll find it... Oh, it did. Oh, no, it didn't. It just went to the modem. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. So I'm going to point the camera away from that. But it is working. There is data transfer going on and everything else. Connection is untrusted. Oh, again, probably the same reason. Yeah. At least this site doesn't have HSTS on, so I can actually go to it. As it loads, there you go. It is on the internet, and it is working. I can load pages. It works just fine. I'm trying to find one with images so I can show you just how slow it really is. This is the way the internet used to be. It is still loading. My camcorder might run out of batteries by the time it actually loads. I think there is a picture on this page, and that's what it's probably trying to load right now. Yeah, here it comes. Yeah, the internet is not kind to folks on dial-up. It'd be better over 56K. It'd be nice if I could get the 56K modem working. And I may do a quick test at some point later. I mean, it's like 4 in the morning right now. I shouldn't even be doing this. But this is the culmination of everything. Having it work. It's amazing. So at this point, I have my network, and now I don't have to worry about various computers and their not having Ethernet, because as it turns out, a lot of my vintage computers don't actually have Ethernet on them. Doesn't matter anymore. So it is now done loading. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we'll disconnect. Which it will do. I don't know if you... Well, you wouldn't have seen it. But yeah, it has now hung up. And that's all there is to it. Okay, just to go ahead and close out the video, I did manage, as you can see, to get the 56K modem to work. However, the speed is worse going to that than it is going to the other one. And I don't know why that is. But I have no reason to believe that it's not working. And that it'll just be slower. But yeah, we are connected. Whether or not it actually loads that page is anybody's guess. Guess we could go over and see what the modem's doing. What actually ended up being the problem, believe it or not, was the USB port, or not the USB port, I'm sorry, the serial port on the back of the computer. So I'm going to have to do some investigation on that one as to why that serial port's not working. Because I changed the cable, as you can see, and changing the cable made no difference. But all of a sudden, it's in fax mode. I wonder if that's why. we're getting the slow speed. I'll have to, yeah, like I said, I'll have to do some work on that. Figure out, because the other one I don't think was going into fax mode. So, yeah, definitely some kinks to work out on that, but it's working, and I now have a dial-up network here. I would like to thank you for watching. I guess I could turn this back on. And if you have any comments, please. Wouldn't you believe, right when I'm about to finish the video, is when the stupid camcorder decides to die. So I've done pretty much everything I need to do here. I got it configured. Both modems are working. I did know, because I was doing a little bit of testing, both of them are turning the fax light on. So I'm not really sure where the issue is. It's probably in an initialization string that I got to give to the modem. I don't know. Right now, it's working, and it's good enough for me at this point. It's just kind of too bad that my monorail didn't work. That's got some other problems. I'll have to figure that out. I don't know what I'm going to do to figure that out. Probably get out yet another serial modem, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below.